All right. Hi, everyone. Hope that you're all having great afternoons on this gloomy Thursday in New York. This is Maddie from Inspiring Capital. Thank you so much for spending about an hour of your afternoon with us learning more about the National Parks Business Plan Internship. I'm just going to quickly kind of lay out a few logistics of the session and how we'll kind of all be communicating with each other and who's going to be presenting. So in just a minute, I'm going to pass the baton over to Marco and Tommy from the National Parks Business Management Group. They're going to be giving the majority of the presentation for you all today as kind of the experts on this program, both now working for the BMG and also being alums of the internship as well. So they're kind of our gurus here today on the business plan internship. And throughout the session, I'm going to make sure that all of you stay muted with your videos off, just, kind of hang out, think about questions that you might be having. If you do come up with a question throughout the presentation, you can go ahead and send those to me. So I come up as the host, the Inspiring Capital host, just via the chat box, the chat function. And I'll kind of be collecting questions throughout the session. And then at the end, when we have some time after the presentation, I'll go ahead and ask those questions on your behalf for Marco and Tommy. And so, just think about them throughout the, as they're saying things. It'll kind of be most efficient if we save all of our questions there towards the end so that we can make sure that it doesn't already get covered throughout the session. It's a super informative webinar. And then please stick around at the end to listen to other people's questions. They might be helpful if it's not something that you had thought of yourself. So that being said, just try and keep yourselves on mute the whole time, just to keep things a little bit streamlined here. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, unmute Marco and Tommy, and just a reminder that at any point during the session you have questions, you can go ahead and just chat those right over to me via the chat function of the webinar. So thank you so much.
All of you for attending this info session today. My name is Marco, as Maddie mentioned, and I'm a management analyst with the Business Management Group of the National Park Service. We're a small but mighty team of 6 based in Washington, D.C. and Denver, Colorado, in the Office of the Deputy Director for Management and Administration. Our mission is to strengthen the long-term health of the national parks by helping leadership make strategic decisions based on data and analysis. One of the ways we do this is through this business plan internship, where graduate students such as yourselves basically serve as management consultants for the parks. This program is an excellent example of a public-private partnership, and we are proud to deliver it with our partners, Inspiring Capital. I've been with the National Park Service now for over 3 years, about 3.5 years, and was a past BPI consultant in the great year of 2012. I was placed at the LBJ National Historical Park in Johnson City, Texas, to put together a comprehensive business plan for the park. I enjoyed my summer so much, I knew that I had to get back to the Park Service as soon as possible. Now, Tommy, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Thank you, Marco. So my name is Tommy, and I'm also a management analyst with the Business Management Group. I work directly with Marco here in Denver. I've been with the Park Service for just over 4 years now, and I was also a past BPI consultant in 2012. Marco and I were actually co-consultants at Lyndon B. Johnson National Historical Park. So we worked together on that business plan that he just mentioned. And like Marco, I had a great summer and was really excited to get back with the Park Service after I finished up school.
Yeah, pretty wild. The band is still here together in the Park Service. So we'll go ahead and get started. We organized this info session around answering these following 4 questions. The first is, what is the National Park Service? We're sure you know a little bit about it already. Then what is the business plan internship, what we're all here for? We want to tell you a little bit about what we think makes a good BPI consultant as you guys are preparing your applications. And then finally, we want to talk a little bit about what the logistics are around applying. And as Maddie mentioned, we'll be sure to leave at least 20 to 25 minutes at the end of the presentation for questions. So I imagine most of you are familiar with the general concept of national parks, but maybe less familiar with the agency that manages them. The National Park Service is a mission-driven land management agency that has been preserving our natural and cultural resources for for over 100 years now. Some of you may have heard we were celebrating our centennial last year. We're part of the Department of the Interior, and of the 4 federal land management agencies, for those looking to score some trivia here, those other land management agencies being the United States Forestry Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service has the strongest conservation mandate, which you can see here, to preserve unimpaired, there in orange, in our mission statement. And that language is taken right from our founding legislation, the Organic Act. Really sure if you can see that? No. So here's some by the numbers. The National Park Service includes 417 sites and growing, and covers more than 84 million acres. We host approximately 300 million visitors each year, and we operate on an annual budget of about $3 billion. Economic impact studies find that this national investment generates nearly 250,000 jobs for local economies and brings in some $27 billion in local revenue. We're made up of approximately 22,000 employees, and we work closely with park concessioners, businesses that provide visitor services in parks, who employ an additional 22,000 people in the parks. And here, we found that when people think about the National Park Service, they typically think of the big Western natural resources parks, the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, and Yosemite. We do manage those iconic places, but we also manage some of the most important heritage and history sites around the country. In fact, we actually have more cultural resource sites than natural resource sites in our system. You can sort of see this map of where the Park Service is across the United States and into our territories. And you'll notice that they include historical parks, national monuments, national parks, battlefields, preserves, recreation areas, seashores, parkways, lake shores, and reserves.
Thank you, Marco. Now that you've heard a bit about the National Park Service, let's discuss the Business Plan Internship in a bit more detail. Essentially, the BPI is an internal management consulting service for the national parks. Each summer, up to 18 consultants are selected from top graduate schools of business, public policy, environmental management, and related fields to work as 2- or 3-person teams at national parks, or possibly program offices as well across the country. Like any consulting internship, BPI participants complete a specific project related to strategy, finance, operations, or marketing. The difference, though, with us is that our clients are national parks, and you get to live on site in a beautiful national park. The primary goal of the program is to promote the long-term health of our national parks by improving data-driven decision-making and strategic management. Our consultants provide analytical rigor and capacity to inform key management decisions and solve pressing operational challenges. In addition to this primary goal, the BPI program also aims to attract talented and passionate people into full-time positions and leadership roles throughout the National Park Service. Successful completion of the BPI program qualifies our alumni for non-competitive hire to the NPS. That's a really big deal. It means that should you be interested in joining the NPS team after graduation, you will be strongly positioned to do so. So we are currently in our 20th year, and the program is highly regarded throughout the Park Service, and it receives great support from the agency's leadership. You see a quote here on this slide from the former comptroller of the NPS that helps to capture how important the program is to the agency. In the slides that follow, we'll talk a bit more about the specific projects our consultants work on and try to give you a sense of what the actual day-to-day work looks like. We ask a lot of our interns. These are high-profile projects that consultants own from start to finish. But in addition to asking a lot, we also work very hard to prepare you for a productive internship. I'm going to briefly touch upon a few things that we do to ensure you have a successful project. Before the summer begins, we work on project selection. That means that in addition to having a competitive process for consultants, we also have a competitive project selection process. Parks and programs submit project proposals, and we select the strongest ones. We look for well-defined proposals, strong park management buy-in, and a track record of implementation. We also prioritize high-impact projects, particularly where the analysis can be scaled up or transferred across parks. We also meet with park staff and begin initial research and data gathering to give you a jump on the projects, and we draft a detailed scope of work and timeline to guide your summer. We carefully match consultants with each other and with specific projects, looking at skills and experiences, work and personality styles, as well as preferences. That's all before the summer begins. Then, during the summer program, we try to prepare you for success by holding a 1-week training at a park. At training, we build your cohort through outdoor and social activities. We dive deep into NPS operations and finance. We prepare you for interviewing, engaging with park staff. And near the end of the week, we bring in park staff so you can meet your park project lead and also work closely with them to launch the project and really be ready to hit the ground running when you get to the park. Finally, throughout your summer, you'll not only have the day-to-day support from your parks project lead, but also the assistance of a BMG project manager from our team in DC or Denver, the business management group. And that project manager will help you develop analysis, demystify data, manage work streams, review deliverables, and troubleshoot as needed. The traditional product of the business plan internship is a business plan, which is essentially a 3 to 5 year strategic operating plan for a park unit. Business plans serve as both internal management tools for parks, as well as external communication tools with park partners and stakeholders. We also have our interns tackle other types of projects for parks, such as commercial services strategies, targeted operational and financial analyses related to things such as fleet, partnerships, revenue management, or marketing. So here are a few quick examples of projects. The first example is from Marco and I's business plan, actually. Lyndon B. Johnson National Historical Park. This is the cover of the business plan. And this next slide is just a quick excerpt from the plan. It summarizes one of the key pieces of the plan where we outline the park's top priority goals and developed an action plan for achieving these goals, which was the result of a facilitated priority setting session held with the park's management team and one of their major stakeholders. I'd also like to point out the rating system that you can see. That's the triangles, the circles, and the dollar signs. So these were categories that we designed with the help of our project manager and the park staff. So really they represent that in addition to quantitative skills, the internship demands strong strategic thinking and a healthy dose of creativity to come up with new ways of displaying this information, commuting the information across all the park's internal and external stakeholders. I'm going to pass it back to Marco for another example of the previous project.
Hey everyone, here's another one of the greats, a North Cascades National Park Business Plan for 2012. And what you see here, taking a peek inside, this section is all about zooming in on the operations of the park's facility management division. And this division manages all of the park's infrastructure. So your roads, lodges, wastewater treatment plants, hiking trails. And we analyze the current financial situation, looking at funding streams and those cost drivers, and recommended ways to optimize operations in a declining budget environment. So what kind of process improvements might we make? How might we change our staffing model? This is the result of a lot of quantitative analysis of past financial data and a lot of interviews with division managers and ride-alongs with frontline staff.
Thank you, Marco. Our final example is from the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Site Commercial Services Strategy. This project developed an integrated strategy for commercial services offered inside the park. So that's everything from food and accommodation to bike rentals and guided tours. Here, the consultants prioritize services and locations and analyze the financial impacts of different contract structures. As part of this process, the consultants ran a public open house discussion to get feedback from concessioners, from staff, visitors, local government, and also community members. So this slide shows project locations from this past summer. And as you can see, we were fortunate to work with 9 great project sites last year. They included Mount Rainier, Glen Canyon, the Southeast Arizona group made up of Chiricahua, Coronado, and Fort Bowie, the national trails of the Intermountain region, the Badlands and Minuteman Missile sites, Gulf Islands, the Great Smoky Mountains, Catoctin Mountain Park, and last but not least, Denali up in Alaska. Unfortunately, we can't guarantee consultant placement at a certain park or project site before he or she accepts the internship offer. It's something to be aware of.
And so you saw a little bit about where those projects were located. I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit about what those projects entail. So starting up in the top left, looking at Badlands, our interns worked on all layers of the Badlands and Minuteman Missile teams to identify resource sharing opportunities between the parks and conducted financial analyses to sustainably price Minuteman Missile's guided tour of the Delta One launch control facility. At Catoctin, right there in the middle, our interns analyzed utilization of historic cabin camps from a cost-benefit perspective, evaluated the market potential of the camps, and recommended ways to improve visitor services at the camps through new partnerships and management structures. Then over at Denali, our interns worked on a commercial services strategy that outlined a framework of necessary and appropriate criteria for the park to evaluate existing and proposed commercial activities consistently and identified high priority commercial service opportunities. Down at Glen Canyon, our interns worked with park staff in a comprehensive review of the park's operations that included evaluating the park's financial structure, primary cost drivers, spending trends, future costs, commercial service opportunities, and possible programmatic metrics. At Great Smoky Mountains, our interns created a business plan for the park's resource education division to help increase operational efficiencies and enhance cooperation with partners in accordance with the division's strategic priorities. Then at Gulf Islands, our interns developed a commercial service strategy focused on primarily on the park's commercial use authorization program, which includes the financial and programmatic analysis, guidelines for approving potential commercial services, and recommendations to improve the program overall. At Mount Rainier, our interns worked with the management team to streamline and improve the park's budget process and developed a suite of tools to assist the facilities maintenance division with future workforce planning. At the National Trails Intermountain region, our interns developed a business plan to help the National Trails align strategies and resources with the implementation of their recently formalized strategic goals, analyzing the trail's financial data, their staffing, their partnerships, and of particular importance to National Trails, war partnerships, because much of their work on the National Historic Trails and Route 66 is fundamentally driven by those partnerships. And finally, at the Southeast Arizona Group, our interns undertook a comprehensive review of staffing and operations across 3 geographically distributed and unique park units that are co-managed, and evaluated organizational structures to align future operations with strategic goals.
All right, so Marco gave you a sense of the end product, but I hope you're also wondering about the day-to-day and what that looks like. So obviously experiences differ by project, by team, by park, but here's a quick snapshot of the BPI intern's day at Assateague Island National Seashore. You can see that it's a full day, but the work is pretty varied and interesting, and it's bookended with opportunities to explore the park's natural resources. In this case, surfing in the morning and kayaking in the evening. Now we want to be very clear that it's not all surfing and hiking and kayaking. You'll also be spending a lot of time in an office that looks like this, and in spreadsheets that look like this. So in those spreadsheets, you'll be doing quantitative analysis on financial, personnel, operational data, looking at historical trends, building out future projections, running cost-benefit analysis. You'll also be facilitating senior management meetings to set goals and priorities, or also possibly presenting your findings and recommendations to park staff. But there'll also be plenty of days that look like this, where you get to have a bit of fun out there in the resources.
So I apologize for this little window that keeps flashing up. I haven't found how to remove that yet. So just bear with it, okay? And so I hope you're getting that this is a unique internship and also a challenging one. You might work in a remote location, you will have imperfect data, you'll have to deal with the realities and complexities of government policies. You are helping to drive change in a large organization. So participants who are motivated by the mission of the National Park Service do better in these conditions. What else makes for a good BPI consultant? This slide tells you what we're looking for. Passionate, entrepreneurial, analytical project managers. Strong interpersonal skills are key. Our consultants spend time interviewing park staff that come from a variety of different disciplines. Excellent writing and oral communication skills are critical. Our consultant teams must synthesize their findings into formal reports, and almost all teams will facilitate meetings with staff and present findings to senior leadership. Our best consultants combine these skills and bring flexibility and humility. And so just to summarize, let's put up a Venn diagram. So here you have the great BPI class of 2012. Both I and Tommy are in this picture. And you'll see here your love of the folks who love national parks. And then right next to that, you have folks who love pivot tables. And of course, we're looking for someone who's right there in the middle. Loves parks, loves pivot tables, really makes for a good BPI consultant.
So let's take a quick look at last year's class. We had 18 consultants who worked on 9 projects, so 9 consultant teams of 2 people. And they came from a variety of places in their graduate programs. Most of our consultants have just finished their first year, but we also have a few doing post-graduation internships usually. We had 16 first years last year, 1 second year, and 1 PhD candidate. And they come from a wide variety of degrees. We tend to skew towards MBAs and policy degrees. And you can see that last year we had 13 MBAs, 3 MPPs, and 1 dual degree and 1 PhD student. Lastly, they come from all over the country. You can see the list of schools here of folks last year. Their backgrounds, in addition to everything else where they're varied, backgrounds also very varied. They have backgrounds in consulting, education, finance, government, military, nonprofit management, academia, pharmaceuticals, the whole gamut of backgrounds.
So we're sure you're all thinking about long-term employment as well, and you're looking for internships that will position you well for full-time jobs. So we wanted to give you a good idea of what kind of jobs our alumni have. We have a great alumni network, very active and engaged, and our interns have gone on to find success in a variety of different areas. I also want to flag here that earlier in the presentation, Tommy flagged the non-competitive hiring authority. So there is I guess, a pipeline from this program into the Park Service if that is something you're interested in. But let's take a look at this 2011 BPI cohort, pictured here at their training in Grand Teton National Park. They were exceptional, but fairly representative cohort. So let's walk through the class left to right. There on the far left in the beanie, you have Pete, an MBA from Tuck, who now works at LL Bean. Next to Pete, you have Dan, an MBA MEM from Michigan, who now works at SunEdison. Next to Dan, you have Alex, an MBA from Georgetown, who now works at Archstone Real Estate Development. Next to Alex, you have Steph, an MBA from Cornell, who now works as a management analyst at Golden Gate National Recreational Area in San Francisco. Next to Steph, you have Abby, an MBA from Tuck, who now works at Teach for America. Next to Abby, you have Trish, an MBA from Wharton, who now works at Microsoft. Kelly, an MBA from NYU, who initially joined the National Park Service Business Management Group team for a while, and is now the Chief of Commercial Services for the National Park Service Alaska region. Next to Kelly, you have Sarah, an MBA from Columbia, who now works for the Robertson Foundation. Next to Sarah, you have William, an MBA from Virginia at Darden, who now works as a concessions management specialist at Everglades National Park. And next to William, you have Brendan, who, like Steph, Kelly, and William, had such a great experience that summer that he decided to join the business management group and is now the Chief of Administration for the Southeast Utah group of the National Park Service. So the quality experience our consultants get as BPIs translates well to a wide variety of career fields. I hope you're seeing that. And I just gave you some specific examples, but on the whole, about 20% of our program alumni work in the environment and energy sector. About 20% work for management consulting firms, your McKinseys, your Bains, your BCGs, Accentures, and on. And about 20% work for the National Park Service. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a number we're always focused on growing, and we've been very successful in recent years of bringing people into full-time positions here using that non-competitive hiring authority that I flagged. We have alumni in a wide array of positions within the National Park Service, including the Deputy Director for Management and Administration, a number of Deputy Regional Directors, Superintendents, Division Chiefs, Concession Specialists, and Management Analysts. You've heard us talk a lot about our program, but we also want you to see what our alumni have to say. These are a few quotes from our alumni. Why don't you take a minute to just check them out? Sorry, I'm a slow reader. There you go.
All right. So before we get to questions, we want to cover the basic details of the program, requirements, logistics, compensation, and how to apply. So starting with the requirements, we are a government agency and require that our consultants be U.S. citizens or permanent residents. They must be full-time graduate students at the time of their application, must have at least 2 years of professional work experience, and that doesn't include internships or part-time work. Consultants need to be available for the entirety of the program, which this coming summer will be June 2nd to August 17th, 2018. consultants also need to have a valid U.S. driver's license, mostly to get around the parks when they're out of their sites. Logistic-wise, training this year is going to be at beautiful Acadia National Park, one of the favorite parks of our consultants last year. So hopefully many of you would be excited to go there as well. Following the week of training, you'd have 10 weeks at your project site, and you'd be paired with another consultant. Almost always we have consultant teams of 2. You'd have an on-site project champion who is a member of the park staff. You'd also have a DC or Denver-based project manager from the business management group. And again, those dates run from June 2nd to August 17th.
Now turning to compensation. As part of the program, you will receive a weekly stipend of $775. You will live in park-provided housing, and this can vary quite a bit from seasonal housing with limited amenities to corporate housing complete with pools, hot tubs, and fitness centers. You will receive travel costs to and from training up to Acadia and to and from your project site, which could be anywhere in the country. And meals during training up to the federal government per diem rate will be covered. And of course, you can't put a price on life in the parks. Am I right, people? Am I right? That's really what you're there for. But please keep in mind that the National Park Service and Inspiring Capital will not provide transportation for your daily commute to and from work. So having a personal vehicle can be a big help depending upon your park or project site. When Tommy and I were in Johnson City, it's a really small town, super walkable, and our commute was literally across the street. We'd cross the street each morning and go to our office. But I'll tell you that without having a personal vehicle, our weekends would not be nearly as fun, and we certainly want folks who participate in the program to sort of get out, explore the region, and so having your own personal car is going to be, I think, really crucial in sort of getting you out and stretching your legs, if you will. And now to apply, submit your resume, application questionnaire, and 2 references on the website that'll be on the next slide. The application deadline is December 11th. Seems like a long time, but it's right around the corner, so please get those in now. Our round 2 video interviews begin in January. Our round 3 live case interviews are going to be in early February. And as was already mentioned, park placements are made after the cohort is finalized. So we really ask a lot of you and ask you to sort of, by the time we extend an offer, we'll have a list of projects and locations. We obviously look to hear from you about what your needs are for the summer logistically, but we don't actually place you until after you've accepted. And so that's all that bullet's about. Park placements are made after the cohort is finalized. And again, to submit your application and for more information, check out that website, inspiringcapital.ly/NPS. And with that, we will open it up to questions. Back to you, Maddie.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So we do already have a couple questions in that I can pass along to you. So somebody was asking about accommodations if they are married with a family. Has there been any circumstance in which fellows have been able to bring their family with them to the parks during the summer?
Yeah, thanks for that question. As family men ourselves, I definitely think that this is something that would be on our minds. And in years past, we have had a number of married interns with children. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can say outside of the fact that each park and project is going to be a little different with what they will allow with housing. And so again, we would look for that type of information on the questionnaire that you'd submit as you're thinking about your, where you want to be placed. And we would work to accommodate you as much as we could. But we've heard from married folks in the past that it's probably best just to say, it's going to be really difficult if that is the case, and we will work to accommodate, but it's always going to be a little tricky. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Tommy, anything to add on
I think we've always found a workaround, figured out, once we get the park placements and know your preferences, we figure out a way to make it work and do the best we can.
All right, perfect. Somebody else was asking how the teams are organized. So, for example, I think that by teams, he was referring to the pairs. So, is one part of the pair someone with marketing expertise paired with someone from a finance background to diversify a team's perspective, or how does that work?
Oh man, another great question. Yeah, we do put a lot of stock into how we pair our teams up. We look for your own individual preferences, some of those logistical challenges you might be facing, like a family or having a bunch of weddings one summer. But we're also looking at which pairs make the most sense for which projects. And so not all of them are going to require marketing expertise, for instance, but often all of them require some degree of comfort with quantitative analysis and some degree of comfort with presentation or stakeholder engagement, working with outside partners. And I think that I came from sort of a more non-traditional background. I did not come from a background in finance or consulting and really came from Capitol Hill, and kind of saw my skills around sort of project management, sort of moving the ball forward, strategy, working with stakeholder groups, but was a little concerned that maybe my Excel skills weren't up to snuff. But thankfully, I was paired with this brilliant quantitative master named Tommy Drake, and it was super complimentary, and I think we worked really well together and really complemented our skills. And that's what we look to do with all the pairs over the summer.
And to add to what Marco just said, I came in with a pretty strong quantitative background, and I learned a ton from Marco about interviewing and facilitation and project management. So again, very complementary skills, and really pushed us both forward and challenged us to grow into new areas.
All right, perfect. So another question that we had was about the amount of lead time prior to you finding out about your location or your project. So just to get a better understanding of the amount of time you have to kind of prepare and learn about your park before you begin the internship.
Yeah, generally we'll have our cohort set up by late February. And so that leaves you about a quarter to plan for your summer. And I don't really remember when we did matching, but I want to say it was soon thereafter, like maybe the next week. So it's about, you have about 3 months of lead time to connect with your co-consultants, think about what you're going to do about a vehicle, think about how you're going to get a vehicle to from where you are to where your project is. And so we've never had a major problem around planning, given that you have that lead time. But I will say that we had that project at Denali last summer, and our interns were driving from Seattle and from New Hampshire, and our intern from New Hampshire literally drove from New Hampshire to Denali. So that was obviously challenging, but something that she wanted to do. Really was looking forward to the road trip. So I'll say you have a lot of lead time, a lot of time to plan, and hopefully it shouldn't be too much of a challenge to get to your location.
Okay, perfect. And then we have had a couple questions come in about the 2-year professional experience requirement. I didn't know if you guys wanted to elaborate just a little bit on why that's such an important requirement for the internship, and because of that, why we usually don't make exceptions to that rule.
Yeah, so we require 2 years. I believe last time we did the averages of our cohorts, we actually averaged around 5 years of work experience. And I think that has a lot to do with the projects that you'll be engaged in over the summer, and sort of the people you'll be working with. So you'll be working with senior park leadership, often with regional leadership, and moving into sort of leadership at headquarters as well. So a lot of the way we market this to parks and programs around the agency is that these folks have that professional work experience. They're interns in name only, and come with a large skill set to share. And so that's really why we require that 2-year work experience. We find that generally they're better prepared to converse with senior leadership. They have a wealth of experience to draw off of to bring that talent into the parks, and that's really what we're looking for. So we have made, I want to say we think about making exceptions. I don't know if we ever have. I've never, as long as I've been here, there's never been an exception made. But it's definitely something that we consider on a case-by-case basis. If there were some internships, for instance, or part-time work that you did, it's certainly something we'll consider. But our rule is pretty. It's held the test of time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's a really challenging internship that requires lots of autonomy, lots of skill, and we find that folks with at least 2 years of work experience are really able to draw on those past experiences and do great work for the parks.
Perfect. So, and then kind of these questions are a little bit related, so I'll try and combine them. But just about if you guys know yet which parks will be receiving fellows this summer, and kind of looking at the numbers of applications on the park side that have come in, are you thinking that they'll be about the same number? So, 9 total sites with 18 consultants this year as with last year.
Yeah, I think that we're likely to have 9 project sites, but it's uncertain. Really, I think we think about interns, so we'll probably have 18 interns. And sometimes if there's a larger project we take on, we might make a team that's larger than 2. So that's kind of in flux. Additionally, right now, Parks and Programs are developing their project requests, and so we don't have a good number to give you about how many we're selecting from. It's a number that's increased every year, and last year it was somewhere around, I want to say 33, and we selected 9. So fairly competitive from the park side. I think another question had to do with intern applications, and I don't know the exact numbers on this. I can tell you it's competitive. Maddie, you may know better than we do, but I think it was around 5%. So obviously very competitive on the consultant side, and fairly competitive on the park side as well. I think we're anticipating somewhere around 33 again, but it's really anybody's guess. That could be upwards to 40 or 50 given the trends that we're seeing. And then just to be clear, we would select those projects that we thought were the strongest for the summer out of that, 30 to 50 projects.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And then finally, right now, I also have a couple questions about the case portion of the application process. So is it, would you consider it more of a financial-based case or more towards a traditional consulting style case?
I think we'd call it more traditional consulting style case, but really it draws on our experiences in parks. So it's a problem that came up in an actual park, either during one of our own projects on the business management group or from a prior business plan intern. So I would say it's a traditional consulting case. Nothing to worry about too much.
Yeah, but it will require math. We allow calculators and things like that, but we will, there is calculations that go into it. And sort of synthesizing the work that you've done and then thinking through some of the strategy and what you're recommending.
Perfect. And then, so the last kind of question here I can answer is on average, how many applications do we receive for this internship? So I can speak for last year in saying that we had just around 300 applications come in, and it's looking like numbers will stay about the same or around kind of 250 to 350 is what I'd guess. But yeah, so those are all the questions that I had so far. I'm happy if you guys are to stay on for a few more minutes to see if anything else comes in, but otherwise we've recorded the webinar, so we'll go ahead and post it up on our website if you want to go back and reference it or share it with your friends or anybody who couldn't make it but was interested in learning more. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions in the next few minutes or so, just go ahead and let me know, and we can stick around to answer them. But thank you so much for participating. And thank you, Marco and Tommy.
Hey guys, just something quick to flag because I'm seeing it in the chat box around turnaround time after the interviews when we make our final decisions. We make acceptances on a rolling basis. And so generally we respond within the week and kind of keep you updated in a weekly manner on sort of where your application is at once you've reached the interview stage. But that kind of ranges from a week turnaround time to a few weeks turnaround time. Really just depends on how many folks we've interviewed over the course of that week and sort of who's gotten back to us when. And so that's why earlier when Tommy and I were talking about lead time, we were saying generally we finish in February, and that's the reason for that. It's just that we make offers on a rolling basis. Cool. Well, Maddie, it looks like folks are really dropping off here, so unless there's anything else, maybe we just say thank you for all you've done.
Thank you, Maddie.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, we actually just had one more question come through. So just speaking a little bit about the expertise of park managers or the project managers that they'd be working with, and kind of what types of backgrounds those managers are coming from. So more with a natural resource background, or social science education, or what type of professional experience their kind of point people will be coming from.
Yeah, great question. It's really hard to respond to that, though. I think when you think about the Park Service as a whole, it's also kind of difficult to answer that question. It really ranges depending on which park or program you're placed in. You know, I've had some folks who came in from the private sector, who came in from consulting, who got linked up with the Park Service back in the 90s and really fell in love with it, and then kind of stayed in for a while. I think what is safe to say, though, that most of the time the managers you'll be working with have spent a number of years in the Park Service. We're talking generally somewhere between 10 to 30. And they come from a variety of disciplines. Some of them are law enforcement, came up through the law enforcement ranks. Some of them are facilities folks who came up, dealing with facilities. Some of them are natural resource folks. So it kind of goes across the board. I think in the past, if you had asked this question 10 years ago, I think law enforcement would sort of be the focus of most of the superintendents. But I think that's really diversified now. You have folks coming from administration. You have folks coming from outside of the Park Service. You have folks coming from natural resources and cultural resources. So it's really across the board. And I think that's why we stress flexibility so much and look for those communication skills that let us know that you can communicate to folks from a variety of backgrounds. If they're more technical in nature, if they're less technical in nature, can you scratch all the jargon and make yourself plain? And that's really what we look for as part of the screening process. Are you someone who can translate a variety of different speak and make convincing arguments for the work that you did?
Well, one thing to add to that, I think it's also safe to say, is that you will be impressed by the depth of knowledge and the passion of everyone who works in the parks. I still, every time I go out to a park, I come back so impressed and just happy that we have folks like that out there working to protect those special places.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, now I think we're good on the questions. So yeah, thank you so much again, both of you.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. Thanks everyone for the questions.
All right, and if you think of anything else, then you all can reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure that, either I can answer your question or make sure that it gets passed along to the right person. So I'll go ahead and end the webinar for now, but thank you so much again for attending.